5, or has just been revealed, should I say, by The Flow, who has just dropped the fact that he managed to get Linux running on the PS5. Now, that would be a huge achievement in and of itself, but beyond that, he's also managed to get the graphics drivers running. So he says here, I ported Linux to the PS5 and turned it into a Steam machine running GTA 5 enhanced with ray tracing enabled. So yeah, you can see here in the video, he is running GTA 5 at around about 60 FPS. It is dropping a few frames here and there, but it's running at 60 FPS. This is the enhanced PC version of the game. And if we kind of pause on the settings at the beginning, we can see that he is running at 1440p with the high ray tracing preset enabled. This is one of the things I've been hoping for a long time that we would get with a jailbroken PS5 is the ability to run Linux. I know some people don't care about it that much, but I really think more people should, and I'll try and explain why. So for jailbroken PS4s, we've had this ability for a long time, being able to run Linux, which has been very useful. It's one of the biggest things you can do with a jailbroken PS4 is run Linux alongside, so that you can boot into Linux and effectively have a desktop PC that you can access on your PS4 with all of the functions that you can do with a desktop computer, but also you have the ability to run, games and emulators. Now, with the PS4, it is very underpowered, especially the base PS4 at 1.6 GHz on the CPU clock with those underpowered Jaguar cores. It does not perform very well, so for games that you can run, you have to lower them to less than ideal resolutions like 720p and lower the settings down to low to actually get the game to run smoothly enough to be playable for a lot of games when running them on the PS4 through Linux. Not only that, but emulators are also quite limited. You can run emulators up to GameCube and Wii with the Dolphin emulator, but even then it can struggle, especially with the base PS4. So that's kind of your limit with the PS4 jailbreak when running Linux, whereas the PS5 is a much more powerful system, much more modern, more powerful cores. The CPU is about double the clock speed of the PS4 at 3.2 GHz, although the Flow has also stated that he's actually managed to get it clocked up to 3.5 GHz and the GPU up to 2.23 GHz, but the PS5 Slim model that he's using overheats too quickly at those speeds. But we can see from the video that he does appear to be using his PS5 upside down without the official stand, which could restrict airflow somewhat. It's also kind of up against the wall to the right there as well. So perhaps with proper airflow, the system might be able to sustain those clock speeds long term, or at least we could perhaps tune the fan settings and wrap the fans up to be able to sustain it at those higher speeds, which would be fantastic. So the way I kind of compare it is that the PS4 running Linux is like buying a really crappy office PC on eBay and then sticking a also crappy GPU inside it and trying to game on it. That's kind of what the PS4 feels like, but that's probably like a 10-year out-of-date reference at this point. Whereas the PS5 is like having a low-end actual gaming PC. Obviously, it's not going to perform nearly as well as an actual gaming PC, but it's closer to like a low-end, low-spec gaming PC, which should mean that you should be able to run most games just fine at 1080p or maybe 1440p resolution, and also perhaps run a lot more powerful emulators, like being able to use PlayStation 2 emulators, the Switch emulator, obviously CMU, the Wii U emulator, maybe even things like Xenia for Xbox 360 games, and maybe RPCS3 for PlayStation 3 games, you could perhaps run on the PS5. I know it is a very heavy emulator on the system, so I'm not sure how it would handle that. I haven't really been keeping up with all of the updates on RPCS3, so perhaps it's gone through a lot of optimization since I last tried to use it, and therefore, it might perform a lot better now and be able to run on the PS5 and get games running smoothly. So yeah, we could potentially run Xbox 360, PS3 games perhaps, Switch games on a PS5 when running Linux, as well as running PC games. Because of course you can play PC games online, it's not restricted, and you don't have to pay for a PSN subscription to play PC games online. So that's another benefit. So we have a few other replies from The Flow saying that he got 4K HDMI video plus audio working, and all the USB ports also work. And then of course he also talks about how it normally runs at 3.2 GHz with the CPU and 2 GHz for the GPU, but he can boost that up to 3.5 CPU and 2.23 GHz on the GPU, but of course his PS5 is overheating with those settings. Then he also says before GTA 6, so yeah, we actually got Linux running on a PS5 before GTA 6, but also he says that this only works with the full chain exploit, which is Hypervisor at the moment, thus only available on older firmwares. So that's the biggest downside right now, is that it's only functional on old firmwares that have a hypervisor exploit, which is only firmwares up to 2.70 on the PS5 currently. Now that is likely to change. We have seen some Linux developments that may work up to 6.x firmwares with certain workarounds, and we've also heard of other hypervisor exploits in private from flats that will also work on higher firmwares above 2.70 up to like 4.x firmwares. So we could still see Linux get ported to higher firmwares in the near future, but for the meantime it looks like it will only be these older firmwares that have the hypervisor exploit up to firmware 2.70. But of course the elephant in the room here is how is he running this on a PS5 Slim if he's using the biprovisor hypervisor exploit, which only works up to firmware 2.70 as the Slims came out after 2.70, so he must have his own hypervisor exploit that works on higher firmwares, and that's how he's able to actually get this running on a PS5 Slim. Either that or he has some kind of workaround for the hypervisor that allows him to run it using other jailbreaks that don't have hypervisor exploits, but more likely he has some kind of private hypervisor exploit that he's using to be able to run this on a Slim. Otherwise, the only PS5s that should be able to run this that have a publicly available hypervisor exploit are going to be base model PS5s, because those were the only consoles being produced at the time when those older firmwares were out up to 2.70. And he's also sent a pull request over to the Mesa project to add PS5's GPU support to it. So when you eventually run Linux on the PS5, you can effectively install Mesa to get support for the GPU. And last but not least, that is showing 8GB of memory. I have seen a few people asking about this. You know, doesn't the PS5 have double the amount of memory? That's the other advantage the PS5 has, 16GB of memory compared to the 8GB in the PS4. And it looks like it's using the same system where it has to share that memory between the GPU and CPU. So some of the memory is allocated as system memory, the rest is allocated as video memory. So in this setup, it appears that the Flow has set the system up to use 8GB allocated as system memory, and then the other 8GB are allocated as video memory, which is why it only shows 8GB of VRAM available on GTA 5. So at the time of recording, this post has just gone out. We don't have a release available yet, but obviously if it does get added, I'll leave it linked in the video description to the project, and I'll be super interested to cover more of this in the future on the channel, trying out different emulators and games to see what works and what doesn't, once we hopefully have this available so that we can run this on our own consoles. So yeah, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this quick update or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and